the year. And we start off with public comments. Citizens are welcome to address the mayor and council on any governmental item of concern to them, whether or not it is scheduled on the agenda below. Citizens must give their names and at least their street address when recognized to speak. Large groups are urged to select someone to represent them. The public is advised that these meetings are recorded and hopefully televised and are subject to the Open Public Records Act. So I'm going to go from this direction around once, and if there's anybody that would like to speak.
Carol Geisenheimer, Vice President of the Tenafly bid. As you all are aware, the bid directors voted 7-0 to recommend dissolving the bid, and I believe the mayor and council agreed. What has not been agreed to is what to do with the money. It was always the desire of the majority of the bid to give the money back to the stakeholders. Back in April, when I spoke to the mayor and council about dissolving the bid, I mentioned that I had done some research and consulted our accountant, and she seemed fairly certain that it went back to the stakeholders. I did further research and found that the town of Palmyra in Burlington County had recently dissolved and the money went back to the stakeholders. At that time, the borough attorney as well as the mayor and council said more research needed to be done, and no one was certain of how to dispose of the remaining funds. The town attorney at the November 10th meeting stated that the safest thing to do is return the remaining funds to those who paid into it. The bid board has gone back and forth as to what should be done with the money, and at last night's meeting it was decided by a 4-2 vote to return the money back to the stakeholders. The consensus was that it was their money. Mayor Rustin mentioned that he felt it should be put into a trust for 6 months and a committee formed to come up with a plan to utilize the money for the downtown. If no viable project was found, then the money would be returned to the stakeholders. The majority of the bid directors rejected this plan as it would no longer be bid funds, as the bid will have been dissolved, but rather the town would be in control of the money and not the bid. The mayor in April did appoint a subcommittee for this purpose, and they never came back with any project that they felt needed funding. We have had 2 highly paid professional directors, 7 years of bid boards, and to date, except for banners, no projects were ever deemed necessary. It is really time to dissolve the bid and return the remaining funds to the stakeholders. If the mayor and council feel there is a need for a committee to oversee the downtown, then they should create a committee of their choosing and give them directions as to what they feel the downtown needs. Personally, I feel the downtown has come a long way since the recession. We have a movie theater, which is a great draw. We have various restaurants and shops, and filled parking spaces and stores. I honestly don't see anything wrong with the downtown except for the better signage of municipal lots and implementation of the plan Robin and I worked on for 3 years to improve the parking. I have with me a copy of the 2013 assessment roll, which was the last assessments that were collected, which totaled $48,857. That year's assessment was much lower than previous years because of the fact that the bid had a lot of money in reserve and it was not necessary to collect funds that were not needed. Double that and the amount is $98,000. At last night's meeting, I was not able to get an exact amount from our treasurer as to what the balance is, but I believe it should be around $100,000. Maybe it could be a little less, maybe it could be a little more. But working off of this assessment, which has every single stakeholder and what they paid, should be a pretty simple math computation to determine the exact amount each stakeholder would receive. I would also like to add that many stakeholders have asked what they would like done with the remaining funds, and they all want the money returned to them. The bid board of directors have a fiduciary responsibility to use the funds collected for its intended purpose and to represent the stakeholders. I think some people have lost sight of the fact that the bid board represents the stakeholders and their choices. If the funds are not returned to them but rather given to the town with no bid oversight, it is a very real possibility that some of the stakeholders would consider legal action.
Thank you. Anybody else? Please.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Hercules Invictus. I live at 3 Columbus Drive. And at the most recent Environmental Commission meeting, we were throwing out ideas on the table. And one that I threw on the table that I'd like to follow up on is starting a cleanup Tenafly. So it was suggested by Dan Parks that I, basically present that idea here, so I'm doing that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna close the public comment section.
Peter, quick question.
Yeah.
Since we have under old business, the dissolution of the bid, and we have bid board members, would we consider moving that up if the council wants?
We can do that. I would just like to do one other thing first,
That's fine.
and that is, under correspondence B, is a resolution or a letter from Verizon. So if you don't mind just turning to that, we have a representative here from Verizon. You want to just introduce yourself and tell us what you have to say?
Yes, I'm Larry Morgan, work for Tilson Technology. We are under contract with Verizon. What Verizon would like to do is enhance their signal strength in different areas of Tenafly, and by attaching small equipment onto existing utility poles. They have an agreement with the utility companies, with the pole owners, to attach their equipment. And what Verizon's looking for is a consent from the council of Tenafly, giving them an approval to move forward with this process, to attach the equipment to the poles, on existing poles in the public right of way.
How do you feel about quid pro quo? You give us FiOS and we give you whatever you want on the polls.
Well, fiber needs to be pulled to the utility poles where the small cell equipment's going to be attached to. So where there's fiber, there's FiOS. So they are two different entities. It is Verizon, but we have Verizon Wireless, who I'm representing. And FiOS is Verizon as well, but a different entity. But it definitely helps the cause to get FiOS when the fiber is already there.
Max, did you want to say something?
That's the
Yeah.
big-
Please.
First of all, the disclaimer, I was a director with Verizon till May 2015 when I took an early retirement.
Oh,
So that's the disclosure.
I'm jealous.
At this moment in time, there will be no conflict of interest between me and voting on this resolution since I'm retired from Verizon. The question for you is, are we gonna have in town, when you install this, basically an extension of the wireless 4G LTE, or are we gonna be able also to get internet, static, basically internet for the houses in locations in Tenafly via these connections, different and distinct from the 4G LTE?
It is not, it doesn't have
Fixed
anything
wireless.
to do with internet, it's wireless. It's because we use our phones more for data than for call. And that's what takes up the wireless signal. So this equipment is to enhance the wireless signal so that we can all use our phones the way that we want to.
So it's a
It is-
small cell deployment,
That is correct.
okay.
That is correct. So it's not gonna help you with your internet. However, to go back to the FiOS, that can help the cause. It's fiber. Fiber is incredibly expensive by the foot. And there's a battle within Verizon as to who's gonna pay for pulling the fiber to different areas. Well, this small cell technology needs very little electricity to run. In fact, you can plug it into a 110 outlet. But they also need a fiber line, and Verizon Wireless is gonna pay to pull that fiber to activate their small cell equipment.
I have to follow up with something with Peter, what Peter said, since I'm so familiar with the entire technology.
Good.
The request that we would like to make, when you're gonna pull the wire, the fiber for the small cell, it's not the same fiber that we need for the FiOS. The Fios connection is basically a fiber for every home. It's a home run to every single location. So what we will ask Verizon to consider, since the costs are already implemented, to basically double the fiber and bring also the Fios fiber at the same time. Because I know the theory, yes, you have fiber, but it's completely different, and this thing has completely nothing to do with the Fios deployment. If they can do that, they will make it so much easier for us to approve everything. Sorry.
No, go ahead, you finish.
I will,
Our CO is in Englewood. There is fiber already connected to the CO in Gloucester. The entire Alpine area, including Gloucester, is already lit by Fios from the CO in Gloucester. It will be a nothing run to get Fios to Tenafly.
well, you and I might agree with that. But
Good. So
I
just
will-
take the message. Take the message to the people.
You thought this was gonna be easy, right?
I know, that's why I'm here.
Mark?
I will pass that along, Max,
Okay.
and see what they have to say about that
Duck.
proposal.
So, couple questions. So, who owns the utility poles? Who owns the are they going on utility poles?
That is, on existing utility poles. Now,
Verizon does.
you've got to, give me
Yes,
some
he
leeway
does.
here. Is it JCP&L that's in this?
Yes,
area?
PSC&G.
PSC&G.
PSC&G?
Right.
Okay, so it's PSC&G or Verizon Telephone, or a combination of both.
Okay.
And Verizon Wireless already has agreements with the pole owners.
So you're already
So-
compensating the pole owners.
That is correct.
And so, okay, so when you deploy the small cell equipment and you put it in like an area that you determine you need the enhanced support,
Mhm.
do you put it on every pole or occasional poles, or how does that all work?
It's not on every pole. And incredibly, they focus where there's a Starbucks, where there's a grocery store, a plaza, you know, where there are, where people congregate with their cell phones. So they will attach to one pole, and depending on what's around that pole, they'll get from 500 feet to 2,000 feet of enhanced signal strength. Buildings govern that, foliage govern that as well, but they are not thinking it would be cost prohibitive to go on every pole. Just a good location on one pole in a specific area where they know their signal strength is weak. Now, a certain area they're pointing at, the signal strength could be in pretty good shape today, but they know in 6 months' time, in a year's time, a year and a half time, there's gonna be an issue. And there's dropped calls, there's no calls, and it's because we're all emailing, taking pictures, videos, and everything else, and there isn't anything
Right.
left
Right.
to make that call, which is, for emergency personnel, that can be an issue, big time.
So do you have control boxes with these, correct? Where the meters get attached? And let me finish that question before you answer. Does that get attached to the pole, or are they on the ground away from the pole?
There is no ground disturbance.
Done, okay.
All the equipment is on the pole itself. It's either a flat panel antenna that points in one direction, or it's a cylinder, about a foot and a half, possibly 2 feet in height, that's multi-directional, okay? That is as close to the top of the pole that they can place it. And then about 15 feet above pedestrian height, there are a couple of radio cabinets that are attached to the pole.
Below the power lines?
That is correct. That is, yeah, because it was a education for me as to who uses what on a utility pole.
Right.
It's amazing. You have your telephone, you have your cable, you have your primary space, secondary space. But that's all worked out now with Verizon Wireless and Verizon Telephone and PSU.
So do you apply for permits for each pole, or how does that's what you do?
That's the reason why they would like the resolution from the borough is to get a blanket approval, and then for every single location, they will, a building permit and electrical permit with a lease exhibit, an actual engineered drawing of what they're attaching to the pole, and pay the fees and whatnot, and get those approvals in before they do any other work.
Okay.
Assuming you got this resolution relatively fast, when would you think this work would be done? In the spring, or?
Well, I want it done yesterday. That isn't the way it works, but I would say the spring, most definitely, they would start, but if the weather stays like this, maybe after the holidays.
Tony, did you? And then Bill?
Joel, as you know, we have a major communication problem. Radio communication with our fire trucks and our police cars. Will this in any way enhance or help that communication?
I don't
problem
know,
that
I'm
we're
hearing
having.
you for the first time.
This helps Verizon signal strength. So if you're emergency personnel on a Verizon line, it most definitely will help.
That's just Verizon lines.
So Verizon customers primarily would benefit.
That is correct.
See, but I think in the police station though, because I know Verizon has to keep coming in to make Band-Aid fixes
Yeah.
to the.
That's important to know. And if there are specific areas in Tenafly where there are signal issues, if you could bring that to my attention, because this happened in Woodridge as well, where we went into Woodridge for this very same thing, and they gave us just 2 separate streets where, their calls were dropping, or they weren't able to make the calls, and they requested that Verizon focus on those areas as well.
Well, maybe what we'll do is we'll get, this contact information, have the chief
I
call
will
them.
get it, but the meeting that we're having is scheduled, with the consultant is actually scheduled already for next week, and the board will be there as well,
What board?
Bill?
the Board of
Yeah.
Education.
Just a question, are these, is this equipment meant to replace somehow, either now or in the future, eventually, the antennas on buildings and cell towers? Is it just specifically for data purposes to
No.
release the load or lessen the load on the lines on the cell towers for voice, or are these primarily for voice, or just both?
It's for both, and it will not result in the removing of any of the existing infrastructure. But the beauty of this is that they're not asking to add more antennas to the buildings or to build more towers. They're putting these in place to assist the infrastructure so that that doesn't happen. That doesn't need to happen. But it definitely helps data and voice usage in the areas that they're concentrating in.
On the 4GLT voice, it's application of the data. By the time it gets off your phone on the network, it's just
Not
a
every
stream,
phone.
so it's no difference. What I would suggest also, Tony, that in our resolution, we make sure that we include the fact that we want to agree to that, if we agree to that, and also make sure that enhances the connectivity of the fire and police department in Tenafly when that type of activity is
Look,
done.
would that conceivably happen if they're not on Verizon equipment?
I thought that that's what was stated.
Yeah,
Well, I know they always come,
That's
Verizon's always here
right now.
making fixes, so,
yeah.
I'm not,
But
Well,
it's not the cell equipment.
No, it's not the cell equipment. What?
Oh, that's
So-
the telephone equipment? Because isn't the,
Telephone
by the
Landlines.
JCC, isn't that,
So
Verizon.
these are joint, these poles are all for joint use,
right? It is. I
correct? So in other words, will
But
you
it's
be
not
on, you
ours.
could be on the same poles that
Verizon's
AT&T is
I
on?
know,
Oh, it's not ours.
right, we don't
Right,
own it.
That's right.
Because
No.
the poles are joint use poles, right? This is a joint use agreement?
No.
That's the whole thing.
The joint
Yeah,
uses,
right.
the owners of the
They're trying to
poles
find
are.
a
Owners,
solution.
right.
The owner of the
Right,
pole.
right.
AT&T has no poles in this.
No, that's not what I meant. I meant AT&T could wind up putting a small cell antenna on the same pole you're
It's not an
on.
antenna.
I don't know. I can't.
If they
I
get to an agreement with Verizon.
Right, right.
And
They
AT&T.
need,
Whoever owns the pole.
AT&T needs to have an agreement with the pole owners. Right.
Okay, here's what I'm gonna suggest that we do. I would ask Lisette to send this package tomorrow morning to the borough engineer for his review. And Bill, we would like you to review the resolution to make sure that it makes sense, and ask the engineer and Bill if they could get back to us before next Tuesday so we could put this on the agenda for
Okay.
Tuesday. And if you would be good enough to give us a sense of what Max is asking for, if that's doable. And it's not a game, we're not gonna tell you it's a game breaker,
Yep.
but, or a deal breaker, but we would look at that as being a very favorable thing.
Yeah. And the town has the capability of basically asking for specific issues that will improve the welfare of the town when this is done. So that's fine.
We'll try and get this on the agenda for next
Yeah.
Tuesday night, assuming we hear back from the engineer and the attorney. And we'd like to hear back from you also.
Okay, and should I call Lucette like on Monday to determine?
You could call us
as
out
to
on
whether
Monday.
we're,
You're lucky she's gonna answer.
to find out that we are on the agenda? Is that how that works? Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we're going to, as Councilman Zena suggested, let's go to old business for a second and talk about the dissolving of the bid. And Mark and I were at the meeting last night. Mark, if you don't mind letting everybody know exactly what went on, and I'd like the attorney, Bill, to give his sense of the path, and hopefully it won't take too much time.
Okay, so there was a bid board meeting last night, and there were 6 bid board members there, plus some members of the public, and Peter and I. And there was conversation in the beginning about whether the different options for using the money, and the discussion about should the money be put in trust held by the town, and then either the bid or a combination of former bid members and the chamber decide what to do with the money over the next 6 months. And several members wanted to do that, several members didn't want to do that. They wanted to return the money to the stakeholders, and they had a vote, and they voted 4-2 in favor of returning the money, on a pro rata basis to the stakeholders and dissolving the bid as they previously decided by December 31st.
Okay. Bill?
So that is the nuts and bolts of it.
Just a quick question, though. How many board members are there now?
I don't know the answer to that question, but they indicated they did have a quorum last night of the 6 people that were there.
There's 8,
There's 8 altogether? The,
including Nadia.
Okay.
okay, the only issue really that came up with respect to this is whether or not the articles of incorporation of the bid obligated them to take the money and not disperse, not give it to the town, but disperse it to a 501c3 entity. I reviewed the articles of incorporation, and actually, just going to comment very quickly that it's unusual to put a provision such as this in the articles of incorporation. But I think what the simple answer is that since the articles say that the bid board can change the provisions if they want, that really pretty much answers it. To the extent that they may be, that what they want to do by giving it to the stakeholders is inconsistent with the articles of incorporation, they can change that. They have the authority. If they voted to give it back, I mean, let's not put form over substance here. If that's what they want to do, they have the authority to do it.
Okay, thank you. So, it sounds to me like the money is going to go back to the stakeholders. The bid will be dissolved as of December 31st. What I think we need to have happen is between Bill, Jewel, and Susan, the bid board needs to be notified as to what has to take place in order to dissolve the bid in a proper and legal manner. So, Jewel, who would you suggest communicate with the bid board as to what they need to do legally to dissolve?
I think it makes sense for me to obtain the information from Bill, and I'll be the conduit to pass it on.
Okay.
Do they have an attorney? Is Porter still acting as, no? So, okay.
Maybe.
Well, it's fairly straightforward. The whole procedure for dissolution is fairly
The
straightforward.
president is Stephanie?
Yes.
Okay. So this correspondence needs to go to Stephanie, and I think we need to reiterate that we need we expect a response from the bid board, from Stephanie or whoever she appoints from the bid board, prior to December 31st, assuring us that what has to be done has been done. Because otherwise, the money cannot be dispersed. Because if you're not officially dissolved as of December 31st, you got a whole new year. So hopefully, what has to be done is not too complex or difficult and can be done. And you know, we need to be notified right away if they feel that there's going to be any issues or any problems with the process.
Stephanie's back there, by the way.
What?
Steph's back here.
Hiding back
I
over there.
didn't s-
Bill?
So it's clear in your mind what we have to do?
Okay. Bill, I have a question. If the bylaws of the bid basically...
The
require-
bylaws or article of incorporation?
No, the articles of the incorporation, which are basically, do not provide the return of money, do they have to have a formal resolution that says, we are hereby changing the article of incorporation to allow for the return of the money to the, otherwise it's just gonna be a conflict and that just creates a problem.
That was my comment of form over substance. If you want to put them through the exercise, that's something we know they can in fact do.
They should or can't.
They can, and I
Do they
don't,
have to?
I don't think they have to.
Okay.
Since it's unusual to have that type of provision in the articles, generally you put them in the bylaws.
Or in the bylaws.
Because to change your articles of incorporation, that involves the state filing them with the state of New Jersey.
But then at least do they have to change the bylaws? That's what I wanna.
Bylaws don't say anything about it.
The answer is no.
No, the answer is no.
The answer is no.
That's not necessary. If they vote, this is what we're going to do, to the extent that the articles are inconsistent with them, the fact that the articles specifically say that the board has a right to revoke or change any of the provisions of the articles, I believe overrides.
So Stephanie, you know, obviously we're under serious time pressure here. Once you review what Jules sends out to you, please let us know immediately if you find it doable, or if there's any issues, if you need any assistance. Obviously, it doesn't sound like you have an attorney. I don't know how accessible your auditor or your accountant may be, but we need to make sure this is done properly.
She's pretty accessible, the accountant. I've
Okay,
worked with her.
that's fine. Then I'm
It's just-
Susan, do you have any questions or?
No, I'll wait for all the correspondence and their accounting, and I guess we'll have to
Okay.
identify the
And-
stakeholders.
I wasn't at the last.
Yes.
The only suggestion I have is that Carol, as a former treasurer of the bid, has a relationship with the accountant that I don't have as well, and she may want to be the point person
Well,
on this.
You can,
just-
you're the point person with us. You
Yes,
can assign
exactly.
these tasks to whoever you want.
Absolutely, I'm just letting you know that it may be Carol that you may be.
And one of the tasks, which doesn't have to be done before December 31st, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, is the actual distribution of the money. Does anybody have to approve how it's split up?
No, the directions, I believe, the direction would come from the bid board. This is what is to be done. They'll do that by way of resolution. We would just be the dispersing agent. It doesn't matter, you know, we have a way to do that. We're going to give it pro rata back to the...
But who decides which entity gets 2% of it, which entity gets 1% of it? Do we leave
It's-
ourselves in a situation, an uncomfortable situation, if property owner A says, wait a second, I only got X number of dollars, I should have gotten more than that? Is this something, is there a formula that needs to be approved by anybody other than the bid board?
The bid board doesn't even decide how much each person pays.
Well, who does?
It's a formula that comes based upon the assessment of the property.
Yeah,
No,
Peter,
but who is the person that guarantee or make sure that the money is dispersed properly? That's what I'm asking.
That's our
It's being
charge
put on us.
based upon the bid board's resolution. We are charged with that responsibility.
it's all here from the spreadsheet from 2013. It actually says the percentage, what they paid in for that year,
Mhm.
and I'm assuming it's roughly 48,000. I'm assuming we have double that money.
Well, where did you get those numbers from?
The assessor.
The
The
assessor,
assessor.
actual assessor.
Okay, so Susan, you'll be reviewing all this?
I'll work with Carol and Ann, and we'll.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
and
that-
whatever helps, just call me, I can help you
That's
with that.
the answer I'm seeking. So we do have a little oversight as to the actual disbursement of the money.
Well,
We collect the
in
money.
conjunction
I know we
with,
collected the money,
your
but I'm not talking about,
percentages and
talking about
things.
dispersing the
should
money.
have
It will
this, but-
be
Well,
dispersed the
I
same
mean, I'll make copies,
way
it's
as
the only
it's
one I have.
collected.
Okay.
And this is
Like
a.
a copy
You
of that.
understand what I'm saying? I don't wanna be in a situation that after the money's dispersed,
2000.
somebody comes back and say, wait a second, they got more than they should have and I didn't get enough.
Because they're gonna be
But we're
getting
the
a-
ones that make the determination of how much to collect. It would be the same amount of giving back percentage-wise
Well, that-
as we
that-
collect,
that's what I wanted to know.
It's a fixed formula.
So if it's changed.
based upon the assessment.
We're the ones that make
And
the
who gets the
We're the
money?
ones that disperse
The
the numbers.
original.
We're the ones that collect it,
And
and we'll be dispersing it based upon the same exact formula.
Okay.
Based on.
Okay,
what was
sure they
said.
have
Anybody at this
Right.
table, anything else
Yeah.
about the bid?
So,
Okay,
I want
Thank you.
those cards.
Thank you. We gave them to her.
Yeah, but, oh, you did? Okay.
next, we're gonna go to 1A, which is the annual financial overview. How we doing?
We're doing good.
Do we have something to look at?
No, we have nothing to look at.
This
So,
is a narrative.
this is just a narrative. Okay. So I'm going to provide you with the budget overview for 2015 and an outlook for 2016. Our miscellaneous revenue that was anticipated in this year, so far we've realized 5.18 million, and we originally anticipated 5.19. So we've already collected 99.9% of that revenue as of 11/30/15.
99.9?
Yeah, so we're doing good with that. We're right on target, a bit past target, actually. And also our tax, percentage of tax collection is at 98.7%.
That's excellent.
Yeah. So then, for year-to-date, our expenditures that we budgeted were 27,623, 800 million. And as of 12/7,
How much?
well, in the budget, we had budgeted for 27,623,800, okay? As of 12/7, our expenditures were at 84%. However, in the next, during this month, we have a $1 million plus payroll to be processed. We also have been processing a lot of requisitions, and the monies are still being encumbered. There's the bill list will be done tomorrow.
Can I, and I'm sorry to interrupt. In the industry, there is a good rule that we say you don't process any expenses in January, in December, because what happened, there is sometimes a tendency, I'm not saying that you specifically, but there is a tendency, I have extra money in my department, what do we buy in December before they take away my money?
Well, we have safeguards for that.
Yeah, we
have
do.
safeguards,
See, we
So
encumber.
let's talk about
That's the
that.
safeguard. Instead of the payment coming out when it's actually paid, the system for government accounting is that when the requisition comes through, before we give out the money, we already encumber for it, so it's taken out of
Yeah,
our
but what I'm
budget
saying,
appropriation.
is there gonna be a huge amount of purchase orders in December versus, let's say, September of the same year?
Susan?
We are,
No,
we
because-
Let
are,
let Jewel in.
Yeah, we already put a freeze into
Right.
effect for new expenditures. If you recall, that was taken into account in our credit report. That was one of the things that they
Okay.
praised.
All right, good,
Praise
that's
the
what.
Lord.
but we're doing very well, and I don't anticipate that we're gonna have any issue at all.
Thanks.
So during the month of December, I'm projecting that we will be above 90%. So there should be a surplus left at the end of the year with our expenditures as
And
well.
what is your projected for the surplus?
She's,
Not there
if
yet.
you will let her get through
Yeah, I'm
her
not there yet, so
presentation.
I will tell you
We'll
that.
have, we'll have a question and
Yeah,
answer
you
period
can ask me
immediately
at
following
the
the
end,
narrative.
but
You
you're
can hold
thinking
on to
ahead,
it.
I'm gonna get there.
Hold your
Okay.
questions.
Okay, let's see. Also, I don't know who knows this and who doesn't, but with revenue, you cannot budget in the next year more than what you realized in the prior year. So even though we're doing very well with our revenue that we anticipated, if there's anything that comes up for 2016 in revenue that we don't think that we're gonna get, then we would adjust for that, but you cannot, so let's say our revenue comes in at 5.3 million. And that's what we could realize, however, you have to take into consideration what we may not get in revenue as well. Okay, so now for next year, in 2016, our outlook, we are planning a 2.25% wage increase, and that's due to contractual obligations. For our pensions for police and fire, we have a statutory mandate, which will be at a 17.03% increase. And these are definite percentages. Our pensions for the borough will increase by 5.21%. Let's see, the big number. So with that being said, we are planning to keep our expenditures flat, very slight increases, to the best possible extent that we can, so that we can come in within the 2% cap, which is achievable. Our insurance, just so you know, which is also inside the cap, this past year was at 2.1 million. We anticipate a 7% increase for 2016, but that will be offset in part by higher contributions because our police will be at tier 4 for Chapter 78 for their employee contribution to the healthcare benefits.
I'm sorry, what is tier 4?
There was
It's the highest
the
level,
highest level
4 years.
of there's 4 tiers that
Okay.
we have to contribute to. The police were behind the borough employees. The borough employees are already at tier 4. So that being said, if they were contributing like
I understand. So those are the
32%, they
contributions.
could go up to 35% in the contribution. So their share
It's
of the
higher.
contribution is higher. So even though our insurance is going up, our
Employee
increase in
contributions.
employee
Yeah.
contributions
You make
is
up
being
for it.
offset by their higher contribution.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. So how do we regenerate surplus? There's going to be our 2014 reserves will be canceled. They'll be taken into surplus. Our miscellaneous revenue not anticipated, that should be taken into surplus. And I would say all in all, our surplus that we anticipate should be approximately around 1.6 million going into 2016.
And what was it a year ago?
It was about 1.668 million
Okay, good.
for this year. For outside the cap, just so you know, we anticipate most of it to be generally flat, except for the BCUA, which should increase by 10.6%. That is offset in part by other items outside the cap, which is mainly our debt service. That will decrease by 3.9%, and basically that's due to our pay down of our debt and also our recent refunding of bond ordinance, which decreased our interest on our current debt of approximately $200,000 over the next 6 years. So all in all, I think that we should be very confident in providing the same level of service that we do to our residents, and at the same time optimizing whatever efficiencies we can, even though we're going to try to keep our current level of expenditures in 2016.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions and answers.
Okay.
Thank you so much for this
You're welcome.
presentation. Basically, how much is our tax roll increasing, projecting from 2015 to 2016?
Do you mean in percentage or in?
Percentage and
I think in,
real numbers.
now, I don't have it in front of me, but I know that for this year, we're at 93 million. And I think, and we'd have to double check this, last year I think it was around 91.
We always have an
91
increase, yeah.
million.
But that information comes from the assessor.
Yes,
Right.
so it goes from 91 to 93 for
I
next
think it
year?
was
Last
about,
year,
no,
it was last year.
next year, I don't know. 93 million is for 2015 to 16. We just got that right out.
So, Susan, I just am trying to understand. last year budget, basically our tax roll versus the previous year increased by a substantial amount. And if I remember, was 1.07 or something like that $1 million
Okay.
because of, new constructions, reevaluation, stuff like that. Do you have any idea how much is this year a tax roll is gonna be compared to next year? Because that's gonna be coming into the total amount of how much the people in Tenafly will see a tax increase, because that should help not to go, let's say, the full 2%, maybe 1.6, 1.5, because the tax roll is increasing.
The
They
borough
just
will
got
know, but
that
we,
too,
right,
didn't
we
they
get that
just-
from the tax assessor.
Yeah.
And we don't have any projections for next year?
Well, the
Well, when you say
final bills
projections,
just came out in
yeah,
August. So the tax bills really run, you get your final bill in August, so then you
Runs
get the
August to
next-
July,
Yeah.
not January to December.
I understand that very well.
So we just got, the 93 million is the most current tax information that we have for what our tax levy is.
right. We don't generate that information
Yeah.
here. It comes from the county,
Mhm.
and so,
Max, are you talking about the total increase in assessment?
Exactly.
right,
Oh, I.
that comes from the county.
Yes,
Yeah.
assessment,
And there's
because
no way
that
you can
should be.
project the following year,
Yeah,
because you
I
don't know what's
can't,
being
I
built.
don't know what that would be.
There's no
That's what-
relationship between the
probably-
previous
Yeah,
year
that-
and
yeah,
the
yeah.
future year.
Well,
I don't wanna
It's all
give
over
the
place.
impression that that's a number that we project,
Yeah.
because we
You can't.
don't.
No,
Yeah,
but
projected.
like, for example, we know the taxes, see, the way it is, basically, all the increases, you have 50% this year, but they're gonna be like 100% next year. of all
100%
the-
of what?
All the assessment.
You can't predict next year, but what I can tell you is our collection rate is higher because we do have added assessments.
Yes,
But that was based on this year. We won't know what the added assessments are until
Next.
we know
year.
next year
October.
what the construction projects will be.
Paul, did you have a question?
No.
No, okay, let's move on. That's it, Susan?
That's it.
Thank you very much.
You're
would
welcome.
we have some numbers that you just described in a form that we can basically have?
This was a high-level preliminary narrative, but what I could basically tell you what I have that I know for sure, like the PERS, the PFRS, anything that is
That's what's already
definite.
included.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The budgets have been submitted, and we'll be pulling them together next week.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
early yet. We
Very
didn't
early.
meet with the department heads, we haven't met with anybody.
All right,
And we'll have a better feel actually after the next couple of
We'll
weeks.
compile it the
Yeah.
week, this week. We'll meet with the department heads the following week.
Now, what I was asking is what Susan has presented, would we be able to have it like in a soft
memo.
form so we can store it?
A memo.
Or memo to that effect, so we can have it in our records?
Well, I could tell you the percentages of what the.
Yeah, whatever you present.
But anything that I'm not, some of them were estimates,
Right.
so anything that's factual, I would give factual. Some of them are my own
Yeah.
projections based on today.
Which is fine.
And I'm,
Don't supply what you're not comfortable with.
Yes.
Right.
yeah, I could only supply what I know is definite.
Right.
Okay.
Next. Next on the agenda is the GIS project. Jewel?
Yes. You had it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Susan.
Oh,
Thank
you
you,
know
Susan.
what? I think I should mention that we're about our general ledger before I leave.
Okay.
Okay, we have a manual general ledger. I've been working with an outside consultant. We've done this in the past to update our general ledger. So far, we have all of the information in. We put all of our opening balances in for this year from our audit, and we've compiled the cash receipts, the disbursements, and we're putting it together. However, it would be very good if we do automate this someday rather than doing it manually.
Absolutely.
That's our intention. We're gonna automate it someday.
No. We actually have a meeting scheduled.
Oh,
for
yeah,
Friday.
we have it. I'm a little tired. I took the QPA today, just so it was a little, a lot of studying in the last few days. But we are planning to meet with Edmonds, who is they dominate in the state for the software for general ledger, and they have a good financial software package and tax program. And Jewel and I and two of my staff members, we have a meeting with them on this coming Friday. So we hope to get a
Good.
lot of good information.
And I think we should clarify, we've already had general meetings
Yes.
with multiple communities.
Mhm.
This will be specifically a Tenafly meeting.
Okay, and that's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Susan.
Joel?
Sure.
GIS?
GIS. I believe a couple weeks ago, gave you just a overview, and now we're at the point of implementation. Just basically wanted to keep you abreast of the fact that we are looking to upgrade, we are looking to enhance our operations, make them more efficient, more effective, and we are looking to finally move into the 21st century where it comes with respect to land use management and asset management. So a little further along, we have the resolution scheduled for the meeting of the 15th to basically implement the contract. So this was just an opportunity to give you a little bit more information, to give you a clearer idea of how the project would progress over the next 3 years. As you recall, when we had the budget hearings last year, there was concern about taking on the full cost at once. So our borough engineer, Mazer, basically worked with us in breaking it down. And what you have on the cover memo page is just a quick overview of how it does break down. So when we say we're initiating it in 2015, that's actually based on the 2015 ordinance. Obviously, the bulk of the work will take place in the beginning of 2016. The first phase is $40,000. We provided you with the scope of work, profiles on the GIS leads that will be coming from Mazer. We've talked about this before, but I think it's important that you have specifics, and that's essentially what this provides for.
Thank you.
Can we ask you questions about this?
Sure.
Joe? All right. The scope of work for phase 1.0 shows map viewers, which we all understand, and then work orders. What specific work orders are going to be entered over here?
Those are DPW work orders. They currently have an automated system, but it's based on old computer applications. This will bring it into the GIS system. Right now, there's no relationship. It's all
Mhm.
essentially just blank data, flat data.
So the type
This
of
will be
works that will
digitized.
come into here will be like rebuilding culverts and resurfacing streets. Those are the type of, yeah?
Well, all their
All
work.
all the work
All their
orders,
work.
all work orders.
But those are the type that the work that DPW does,
Correct, cleaning
Yeah,
catch basins.
catch basins and basically infrastructure
right.
type refurbishing and doing like that.
Right.
On the document management, what documents will be included?
When you say, document management, it'll be everything that's related to what DPW uses in generating its work orders. You have the initial work order, you have the staff assignments, you have the completion reports that are prepared by the foreman. So basically, all the documents that are part of that process, as well as their internal memos. The whole idea, as we discussed, is everything will be based on a parcel basis. So
Yeah.
document management would be every time DPW touches a particular block and lot, those documents will, for that particular location, for each individual location, will be in one file.
Yeah. So
that
the
they can see
SQL will be able
everything.
to query by the lot, by locations, by type of work, where did we do culvert improvements, and they're gonna be
Correct.
17 different things.
Plus, you'll have graphic images, digital photos
Yeah.
and things that'll be linked to them.
And the question begs, now the question is, the average Joe that comes to the town here, he goes to the department of, the building department and says, oh, I'm trying to do something to my house. And I need to know where are the pipes, where work was done. Would they be able to find that type of information from the request to the building department? Or are they included in this, or are they completely separated? I'm trying to understand that.
It gives the breakdown over 2 years. Building, zoning, planning board, code enforcement, that'll come in phase 2.
Code enforcement, So if some work was done on a home,
That's what I'm saying,
Phase two.
that's phase two.
phase two, okay. All right.
Okay,
Try
Mark,
please.
please.
Were you done, Max?
You
Yeah,
go
we're
ahead.
beginning with DPW because DPW has basically responsibility for all infrastructure.
So very simple question. So, 10 years from now, if this is installed on a particular culvert, on a particular street, DPW will be able to look back on the history of who's worked on it, what the issues have been, what's been resolved,
Correct.
everything.
Because we have it now, it's just that it's in paper
It's hard,
files.
it's harder to
Understood.
find.
Right.
Takes-
Understood.
And let's say it's a
Okay.
county road, the county can look it up right away.
Max, I'd like to move on,
Share-
please.
Just share.
Uh,
Davis
I
and
just have one question. Would you be able to have then a maintenance program running on this one based on the work that was done? Let's say we have to review all the culverts every 10 years, and then basically will tell you the 10-year culverts are this ones, the 15 years culverts are this one. Can we be, so automatically now we can start assigning type of work to know what we have to do?
We actually do that already. In fact, I already gave you an example. We have work programs. It's just that we're gonna be moving from manual and spreadsheet type documentation to digital documentation.
I have a comment to say, in the description of the hosting facilities, some of the stuff over here, it's obsolete already. We are looking over here at some,
What page are you on?
I'm on page number 6. The borough, the type of computer, Microsoft Internet Explorer, it's absolute, Microsoft is not gonna maintain it under Windows 10, which is the next one level. They completely chopped out the Microsoft Internet. They have a new program. So if you wanna go back to and basically make sure that we update so we don't get some obsolete software included over there.
Okay.
Thank you.
And keep in mind, our IT will be involved as well,
Yeah.
because this is all gonna be running on the network. So
Yeah,
we do
good.
everything in conjunction with Bob
Thank you.
Caputo. And any of those types of minor adjustments about applications and what's no longer being supported, IT provides that input for us.
The zoning map update.
The zoning map update. I have to apologize, I did give you just a brief overview, but I also wanted to give you copies.
That's great.